Okay, so it looks like we're coming down the pipeline for Inhumans. This is episode 6, and being that there's only going to be 8 episodes, it's kind of obvious that at this point the show's going to move forward a little bit quicker than usual, and that's one of the upsides to it being a limited series, is that there's no room to really breathe all that much and not lag like other shows would do where they feel really bloated and stretched out. This gets the ball rolling rather quickly, sometimes a little too quickly, because before I comment on anything else about this episode, the one thing that I left wondering, like scratching my head, like what the fuck was that, was the ending. That ending was just so rushed and out of nowhere, with Maximus just confronting the dude. And I understand that he's playing smart with it, but it just felt so out of nowhere. Like these people are like coming forward thinking that they're attacking Julius Caesar, and instead we're like, yeah, we're dealing with Inhumans. What are knives gonna do? I mean, I understand that he's human, but I don't know. That's just, the presentation of that entire ending was just so crude. And by crude, I don't mean like, you know, rude, obnoxious, or anything like that. It's just really poorly designed, where it's just like everything. And it's also a very good way to kind of encapsulate what's happening with Maximus. In this entire time, I'm just checking my watch, both figuratively and literally, as to when Maximus is actually going to confront our actual protagonist Inhumans, because they've just been doing nothing with him. Either they're literally doing nothing, where he's just sitting on the throne, and I'm like, how many times am I gonna see him sitting on the throne? Because I'm getting bored myself, because I'm feeling bored as if I was sitting on that chair all day. I'm like, why do you want to be king? It just looks so fucking boring. And it's giving me that impression of that whole plotline being boring. And at this point, I just want him to clash with Black Bolt and everybody else, which is why I got just a little excited seeing the opening there, where they just appear out of nowhere, and he's like, whoa, 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 guys. And immediately, after that kind of wore off in a microsecond, I was like, okay, this is a dream sequence. But it made me realize that, okay, I'm looking forward more to that clash, as opposed to him just going around and thinking about, like, oh, people want to betray me or whatever. And I'm like, the scope isn't even that big. We don't even see the rest of Adeline, how it's suffering, or how it's prospering, or what exactly the state of it is in. So there's no real stake as to why Maximus is king. What is the big deal about him being king? Why do people want to betray him? Why does it... That whole thing, I just wanted to like move forward to its end game, because at this point I just really don't care. And if you're gonna slash somebody's throat on screen knowing that you can't get away with anything higher than a 14 rating on ABC, then please just cut away. Don't show just a little bit of drop of blood just oozing ever so slowly out. That's not how the throw works. We have arteries right here. Either you commit or you don't. So ranting aside, we jump back to the good old island of Hawaii, where we catch up with our Inhumans. And once again, it felt during the opening of this episode that we were just going to be kind of going through the motions, especially with Black Bolt and Medusa just chilling in the car with, what's her face? I can't remember her name. I'm blanking out. I'm sorry. I feel terrible, but I like her. And they're just in the car kind of sitting around along with Karnak and Gorgon, just chatting it up, seeing what their next move is going to be. And unfortunately, their next move is to go get Crystal. Why? Because she's part of the family, but why? So at this point, they decide to split up. And here is where the episode finally picked up momentum, because I really did enjoy Karnak and Gorgon's little stealth mission going into the compound, trying to rescue what is, I believe, Black Bolt's friends at this point. But I liked, there was a level of fun to it. I liked it. I mean, it wasn't the best thing that I've seen on television. It wasn't like a ultimately badass moment, especially when you bring in the soundtrack. I've been failing to comment on this, but Inhumans has got to have one of the worst soundtracks ever. I don't mean score-wise. The score is very, you know, typical. It's just very basic, so it's almost forgettable. But what is not forgettable, because of how bad it is the inclusion of all these like trendy, poppy Starbucks soundtrack songs that they put in, even at random moments where there's an action sequence or there's a very heavily emotional scene that involves a death that just feels just canceled out by having somebody just out of nowhere start singing. It's okay to have a score, it's okay to put in some strings or whatever for us to feel something, but just when somebody starts singing, it just takes me out of it. Alright, you need to pick the right moments to include a song. That I'm not saying that it's not possible to do it in a show or in a movie. You gotta use it sparingly, however. But I like how Karnak was able to predict certain things, but in a natural way like we do, and still be able to come out on top with the help of the brawn. He's the brains and the brawn of Gorgon, and I like their chemistry. I like the two of them going back and forth with each other, going through the compound, taking these people in. And I love that one of the things that came out of this was a little bit of backstory to Mortius. I love that he was still his sarcastic self, but when Karnak was able to get inside his head, he actually started to kind of give us, it was one of the few moments where we kind of were able to imagine how it was when Mortius came out of Terra Genesis, and the inflection in his voice and the way that he reacted to Karnak getting inside his mind was enough for me to go, wow, I felt for this. He's a villain, and I felt for this character a bit more than, again, some of our major actual protagonists in Humans, and that was one of the highlighted moments out of this entire sequence. However, it came at a cost, and that's why I put his big fat face here. It's not fat, but his face, his big old mug here in the screen, because at the end of this episode, we bid farewell to Gorgon, at least supposedly for the time being, because you don't know how it is with these Marvel and DC shows. So many characters get killed off, and then the people behind the scenes are just like, actually, that character was super popular, it turns out. Let's bring him back. So, who knows? Considering this is a limited series, I'm actually banking that he's going to stay dead. And he's one of the bigger casualties out of the entire team. I wasn't necessarily in tears or like moved, but I did feel kind of bad because I was beginning to like him. So I was hoping to get just a couple of more scenes with him because I was really digging his chemistry with Karnak, especially with this new version of Karnak that wasn't just so tough as nails and blunt and very, like, you know, almost Aspergerish type, and he was a bit more nuanced with a much other nuanced Gorgon that was now being much more tactical like he was. So they were pairing off very well, that these guys could have been the most dynamic duo out of the entire series, and now unfortunately we have to make do without one of them. What's even more tragic is that the Inhuman that died was not Crystal. Oh, thank God it's over. One of the big advantages, or one of the biggest perks out of this episode of seeing our Inhumans finally all join together, minus Gorgon unfortunately, and finally having the ability to go back to the moon with Lockjaw, is that this whole fucking story with Crystal and the dude is over. Because, my God, it's supposed to retain some kind of importance because it's through her that she's able to like send out signals and stuff like that, and she's able to command Lockjaw, which is their biggest means of transportation. And yet, for some reason, the show is still, at this point, within this episode, still trying to force feed us this stupid romance with her and the dude. Again, with the poppy soundtrack in the background, him trying to kiss. I just don't give a flying fuck. Oh my God. And like I said, I praise the almighty Jesus that this is over. The advantage of having Lockjaw back in working condition is knowing that this whole storyline not only ended, period, but it ended in a rather clever way. And when I say clever, I don't mean clever in a way where it's like, wow, the impeccable writing, but more so clever for the character involved of this doofus who's trying to romance Crystal, in the form of him and Louise, that's her name, Louise, the NASA girl, pretending to be this couple in order to cover up for Lockjaw and the rest of the Inhumans inside the barn. I actually thought that was actually logical and sensical for the characters to do, and I there was like a little inkling of respect for them. The only downside though is that you know that you're in trouble where you messed up with your protagonist Inhuman here in the form of Crystal, when I was actually rooting for that other girl, the veterinarian or doctor or whatever, to bring the cops. When she brought over the cops, the show was making it seem like she was the bad guy. I didn't feel that. I actually wanted her to succeed to a point, because there's some Inhumans in there that I do kind of care about, like Karnak, even Blackpool to an extent. But no, I wanted her to win, because I rooted for her more than I did with this fucking bitch Crystal. I'm sorry, I normally don't use that term, but oh my God, I don't like her, and the more that she's in the background, the better. Which does bring up another little point that I kind of felt a little bothered with this episode, is that early on, we were having an awful lot of conversations with Bolt and Medusa and Louise, and her trying to get back to Adeland, but then out of nowhere, she's like, our people matters first, not Maximus. And this did not feel that earned for Medusa, coming from a person who was treating some people rather badly within the past couple of episodes. And she, unless I'm missing something, a big scene, because that's been happening an awful lot with Inhumans, I don't remember her ever having that turning point, that scene where you have that other character say, I mean, there was that pass by line by Louise where she's like, why do you have to treat people so badly? But she continued. It wasn't like a big revelation scene, a character turning point for her. That never happened. So that made me realized that Medusa was not the character that I was hoping for her to be, and my appreciation and my affinity for one of these Inhumans was then projected over to Karnak. So I'm hoping that in the last 2 episodes we can maybe find some kind of common ground within all of our Inhumans, because now it's, I think, time to take the fight to Maximus, because Maximus is dwindling, Medusa is slightly dwindling. I want Black Bolt to do something kind of badass with his voice, because I think that has to be the biggest payoff, and there's going to be some significant consequences should that not happen by the finale, because that's going to piss me off. Either that, or at least use your voice on Crystal. One of the two. I'll take them. Anyways, this wasn't exactly as good as last week's episode, but still, it retains some form of momentum. I just wish that I didn't come in the casualty of Gorgon, because I was just beginning to like him. So I'm going to be giving this episode a very, very, very high 6 out of 10, only because I did feel like that first half was just a tiny little bit boring, because we were emphasizing a little bit too much on Maximus that just didn't feel like it paid off, and a little bit of the conversation with Medusa and all of them just didn't feel that earned. But the episode picked up, and by the end of it, I can honestly say I had fun with it. So we only got 2 episodes left of Inhumans. If you are watching it, please let me know what you guys' theories and speculations are for how this whole thing will turn out. And do you think that there's ever going to be some kind of connection with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. beginning with its 5th season? Do you think that maybe an Inhuman will show up in the place that Coulson and company find themselves in now? Or if they're just going to abandon the whole thing together and they're just going to sweep this series under the rug, like I'm pretty sure an awful lot of Marvel execs wish to do. Until next time, guys, take care. And I can't get it out of my iPod either. It's on my iPod. I'm not kidding. My girlfriend caught me listening to it one time. She considered breaking up with me.